I'm going to tell you why I think Spiritual Weapon has not actually been nerfed, but why it kind of was in a way. Let's go. Alright, so let's start off with Spiritual Weapon. It's a second level spell, bonus action casting time, 60-foot range, components are verbal, somatic. The duration is concentration up to 1 minute. You create a floating spectral force that resembles a weapon of your choice and lasts for the duration. The force appears within a range in a space of your choice, and you can immediately make one melee spell attack against one creature within 5 feet of the force. On a hit, the target takes force damage equal to 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. As a bonus action on your turns, you can move the force up to 20 feet and repeat the attack against a creature within 5 feet of it. Using a higher level spell slot, the damage increases by 1d8 for every spell slot above second level. So let's talk about this. 2 changes from this spell, basically. First change is it requires concentration. So now that the spell requires concentration, yeah, that's a nerf. In the 2014 version, it didn't require concentration, it was just a duration. And, people had really good combos with it. The most abused combo that I saw was when people would cast Spirit Guardians and then they cast Spiritual Weapon, and then they would take the dodge action. So they're dodging, it's harder to hit them. They're doing damage with their Spirit Guardians, and then they get a bonus action attack on every turn. I mean, this was a great combo. Really, really good, actually. But now you can't do that anymore. Unless you're a War Domain cleric, that is. But later on about that. With them putting concentration on this, it's obviously a nerf. But is it a bad enough nerf that this spell would be unusable, unplayable, or you would consider it a just worthless spell? I don't think so personally. I think that this spell is still good. Granted, I think this spell is only going to be good at levels 3 and 4 when you just get access to your second level spells and don't have access to third level spells yet. Because once you get Spirit Guardians, that Spirit Guardians is going to be the better spell. Which, it's a higher level spell. It should be better. But you're only going to use Spiritual Weapon if you've already exhausted your higher level spells. And that's the only reason I think anybody would use this spell, is once those are expended. Or you're level 3 and 4 and this is what you got. Because you could cast Hold Person. You could cast Command, but those are save and suck spells. So if the creature you're casting them on makes the save, then it sucks. If you rolled really high on your stats, then okay, those spells are going to be better because they have a less chance to save. But when you're casting Command, when you're casting Hold Person, their Wisdom saving throws, and at lower levels, if you're using Point Buy, most of the time, the creatures are going to save. If they don't save, those spells are going to be game changers. And there's a lot of stuff you can do and get out of those spells. Especially with Command. You command somebody to flee, boom, you get all these opportunity attacks on them. Hold Person, all your attacks are advantage. There's, but these spells have to land. And if you're using Point Buy, on average that DC 13 is not typically going to cut it. There's going to be more passes than there are fails. But now when they do fail, it's going to be great. But I think that's where I think Spiritual Weapon, even though it's concentration, this is where I think it's worth it, because you're only using one spell slot. You're not having to recast it to try and get the effect again because they saved it the first time. So what if you miss that first attack? You might hit the second attack, and then you're actually probably more likely to hit someone's armor class than them fail the Wisdom saving throw. That's not the case for every monster, but the majority of monsters will make that save. Whereas I think you casting Spiritual Weapon and just getting those extra attacks, it's going to be better in the longer run, especially, if combats run on average anywhere from 3 to 5, let's say 3 or 4 rounds. 3 or 4 rounds of Spiritual Weapon, you've only used one spell slot, and then the rest of the time you're either doing extra damage or healing. I think that's going to be the better use of your time for your cleric and what maybe you're going for. Or, there are other things you can do with Spiritual Weapon outside of combat. If you distract somebody, you can cast the Spiritual Weapon and use it to hit a door or make some noise off somewhere else, as long as you can see it. But, that it's just one of those things that you can do it at a distance, and, there's other things you can use it for. Granted, that's kind of a horrible example, and most people probably think that that's a waste of a second level spell, but if it gets you out of a combat, probably not that much of a waste. But there are other uses of it, and I also just think that you having Spiritual Weapon out for 3 to 4 turns of attacks is going to be better than, taking the chance with a save and suck spell. Which, granted, man, if they hit and if they fail those saves, it's gonna be worth it. The upcast is the other thing. The upcast basically, you get an extra D8. Instead of the 2014 version where it was, hey, you get an extra D8 for every 2 levels. It was every other spell level, you would get the extra D8. But now they're saying, hey, you get it every spell level. So a 3rd level Spiritual Weapon is doing 2d8. A 4th level Spiritual Weapon is doing 3d8. They've increased the damage but said, hey, here's concentration. I don't really see people upcasting this spell unless they've particularly made a build for that, or if they're, again, War Domain. But it's one of those things where I think that people will use it in the earlier levels, but they won't use it in later levels, because in later levels you just have better spells to choose from. And I don't think that them buffing the upcast is enough for people to say, I don't want to waste concentration on this spell. It's one of those spells that, in my opinion, it's going to be great in the early levels, and it's going to be forgotten in the later levels. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think I'm right? Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm wrong? I mean, my opinion can definitely be wrong, but this is what I think that would be a better use of people's time, especially in the levels 3 and 4. But I can see where people would be like, no, I'd rather, take my chances with some of these other spells, or I'd rather just, save my spells for healing and do other things. But what do you guys think about this? Is the spell truly nerfed? Is it useless? Do you believe it's worthless? Please tell me why in the comments, why I'm wrong. And, otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And see you in future videos. Don't forget to have fun while you're playing Dungeons & Dragons with your friends.